Welcome back to the Real Estate Sitdown presented by Double B Homes and the Pemberton Home Team. This is episode 30. I'm Blair Berg. This is Jaiden Millette. How you doing, Jaiden?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing well. Doing well.
Good to hear.
So at the time of recording, today is Tuesday, December 12th, 2023, and the interest rate for a 30-year conventional loan is 7.1. So it went up a little bit since we last talked, but again, still floating around low sevens like we've been talking about. So yeah, not a lot of change there, and kind of what I'm predicting for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So today we're going to start out with I saw it online. And I guess technically this could be considered like an older segment we used to do called Tips for Selling Your Home. Because recently a house in my neighborhood went up for sale by owner. Obviously, selfishly, I wish they had used me as their agent, but they didn't. And I have no problem with for sale by owner. Went online to look at their house, which when you're for sale by owner, you have to go to a different tab on Zillow. It doesn't even pop up on the main page. And I was shocked at how bad the photos were. And it's too bad, like I said. My girlfriend and I drive by it all the time, and we say like it's our dream house in our neighborhood. Right. And the photos were clearly on an iPhone. I'll plug some into the video here just as I'm talking so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. But the cover photo was, like the very first photo they choose to lead off with was dark. It was from across the street. You couldn't even really see what you were looking at. A lot of the photos are like close up of the yard, which I think they're trying to show that they have like wild flowers growing, but it makes the yard look overgrown. Most of the pictures don't show the home. Most of them are like from pictures from their boat because it is on a lake, but it's pictures like from the boat looking at different things. Some of them are like just fireworks from our 4th of July on the lake.
It's a rough one.
And yeah, I just thought, I completely understand if you don't want to pay an agent to sell your home. Whatever. That's your own prerogative.
Right.
But if you are selling a $1 million property, pay the $500-$600 for professional photography. Please. Yeah.
Google professional home photography.
Well, and like I said, it is a $1 million property. And I feel like somebody's got to end up getting a deal on it because, one, they listed it at a terrible time of year, in my opinion. We're getting up on Christmas. You're already seeing lower buyer activity.
Yep.
And then along with that, you don't even have good photos.
Right.
Most of the photos, I looked through them, and it took about halfway through the photos before they bring you inside.
Right.
And then even then, some of them were vertical, some of them were horizontal. I couldn't tell what was going on in the house. It was tough.
That's rough.
It was tough because, like I said, especially, like, I love this house. So it's a little out of my price range right now. But I'm just like, what? Why would you do this to your home?
You can lowball by like $750.
We'll see. We'll see what kind of offers they get. But if I were them, like I said, I would use an agent. I probably would have waited till February to list. But God,
it's bad. It's bad.
It upset me just because, like I said, that home deserves so much better.
Right.
But I digress. So if you are selling your home, one, I would say use a listing agent. But if you're not going to use a listing agent, use professional photography. At least use professional services.
It's really simple. And especially with how much you can Google real estate agent and you will see a listing.
Yeah.
Like find what people are doing.
Yeah, and like I said too, it's a shame because it's one of the more beautiful homes in my neighborhood, and I had to go to a separate tab on Zillow just to see it.
Yeah.
And that's the danger for sale by owner. At least get an agent to put on the MLS for you. I mean, get an agent, get on the MLS, get some professional photography, be done with it.
Simple.
Yeah. So next, we're going to follow up with the comment section.
This one's a fun one.
Yeah, I got a kick out of these. So they're both two comments that this was a clip that had about a dozen comments on it. So I just picked two of my favorites.
Yeah.
It was a clip that we were talking about how lower interest rates don't always mean the best deal for you.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you can tell people, the online trolls are just, they only hear and see what they want to hear and see. Because it's very clear in the clip, I'm even saying that lower interest rates are good. You
Right.
want lower interest rates.
Yeah.
I understand that. We also want lower prices. And the point of the video is it's saying that lower interest rates means higher prices.
Right.
And my thing about that is just ask anyone who bought during COVID that bought at 2.5%. Everyone there was paying over list
Way
price.
over.
And they were doing something called appraisal gap guarantees. And I don't know if we've talked about on the show before, but what you're essentially saying is you're willing to pay X amount of dollars over what the bank appraises the value of the home at. So you're bringing that in cash, and the bank is telling you it's not worth that much money.
Right.
So you're already negative equity when you start on it. So yes, you have a lower interest rate, but you're doing it at the risk of overpaying for the home and being negative on equity. So
you might as well have been renting.
yeah. The first comment I got was in quotes like, "Oh, I'm stupid, but I'm pretending to have a podcast to make crappy videos. So tell me why paying less interest isn't a bad thing." Ugh, God, what a steaming pile. So again, he obviously was just watching in a vacuum.
He was upset.
Yeah. And my thing is, I love anonymous commenters online too.
Yeah.
Because it's like pretending to have a podcast. Newsflash, I have one. And it's very
30 episodes in.
Anyone can have one. It's very easy.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. You might not think it's good, but it's not pretend. It's
Yeah,
obviously
right. No.
happening.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this is it. I just think paying less interest is obviously ideal.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
what I'm saying is when you can get a home that's below market value with a little bit higher of an interest rate, when rates drop again, you can refinance lower and you still have equity in that property because you didn't pay over what the bank is valuing it at.
Or sell it. And then you make tenfold on what you would have actually made instead of buying when prices are up.
Yeah. And then the other comment, how can more buyers enter the market when no one can afford these housing prices to begin with before interest? Stop hanging around these millionaires, get an idea of what the average citizen is looking at, and you will realize there is not going to be that much of a demand in the next few years for housing. Newsflash, dummy. In that same exact episode, we had a non-millionaire on that talked about how he could buy a cash-flowing rental property that he was also going to live in. He would be making money living in it every month, that he only needed like $2,200 in cash. $2,200. If you're broke, just say so. If you're broke and dumb,
It is, yeah, I mean, it is. Don't go out and buy a brand new car. I don't know what to tell you.
That's what I mean. And that's millionaires. I'm not a millionaire. I own my own
Far
home.
from it.
I own a cash flowing property. We had a non-millionaire on talk about how he barely had any cash and bought a cash flowing property. So this is what is happening when I say people can't afford to buy their dream home. There's obviously ways you can get into situations where you can own a property that will be less than ideal for your perfect scenario, but it gets you into a home for cheaper than rent. We're talking about someone who bought a house and is going to be making money on top of it at the end of the month because he owns a fourplex, rents out the other 3 units, lives in one. The other 3 rents cover his mortgage and then some.
It's not a hard concept to grasp at all. And I feel bad because I feel like, sure, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Like, you might be uneducated, but like, it's not that hard to understand.
If you'd like to become educated, on every clip that comes from the show, there's related video and it shows you what episode it came from. Just click on that and it'll show you what we're talking about.
20 minutes.
It'll literally, and I put out a clip that says how to buy a fourplex with less than $2,500. It's very simple. So,
not to mention it, and it just kind of annoys me a little bit too, because it's like, get an idea of what the average citizen is. Majority of the housing market with the median house prices right now, we're working with the average civilian every day.
Yeah, I work with more non-millionaires than I do millionaires.
Yeah, tenfold.
Yeah. The reason for our videos is to make it easier for first-time home buyers and sellers to understand the market and hopefully educate you on some real estate stuff so you can get into your first home, start building that wealth, and then you can be the millionaire.
Yeah,
but for right now, we're talking how can you get your foot in the door today and then continue to build. So
it's not hard.
Yeah.
It's really not hard.
So that's what I love that. Keep the comments coming. Love those.
Yep.
Moving on, we will get into FAQs.
Blair, are there loan programs that offer 0% down?
Yeah. So there are a couple different ones. Right off the top of my head, you have VA loans and USDA loans. So VA loans are veteran assistance programs. So obviously, if you're a vet, you probably know if you qualify for that or not. So if you're a veteran, be using those programs. That's a great.
For sure.
You can get homes with very little cash in your pocket.
Yep.
USDA loans are a little bit different, and they're meant to help build up rural communities.
Yep.
But you'd be surprised what areas actually qualify for USDA loans. So I live in Lakeville, Minnesota, and it's a pretty bustling South Metro city. It's very large. It's got one of the highest ranked school systems in the state. And literally just south of our border, you can get a USDA loan. So we thought about building there for a while just because, and I think one of our admin girls actually, her and her boyfriend are building a home there because you can get.
I think it's done as of now.
Yeah, I think they just finished it. But you can get a home with 0% down besides your closing costs and stuff, but the actual cash payment can be 0% down if you qualify for a USDA loan. And it's a great way for first-time home buyers to get in. I have a cousin who, in that same city below us, Elko, bought there. They built their first home there. And then once they built up that equity from that, they sold it and then moved to a location that was more desirable for them.
Right.
But for those first 2 years, it's perfect. And you're getting, a lot of times you can afford a brand new home, a lot more home than if you were to buy that same house in Lakeville, it'd be a lot more expensive.
Right.
So these are cheaper areas to live in with 0% down. So if you're watching right now, just Google USDA loan map, and it'll literally show you everywhere that's eligible.
Yep.
And it's generally anywhere outside of your major city and metro areas.
Yeah.
It's a great option.
Absolutely. And not to mention, like you said, like if you're out in the suburbs a little bit and you're not necessarily in rural, as long as you get away from the biggest center of the city, you're going to be just fine.
Yep.
And it still could be main city here, USDA approved here.
Yeah.
And that's 5 minutes away from your biggest part of town.
Well, in this USDA approved town that I'm talking about, it's booming. I would say in the next 10 years, it probably won't be USDA eligible because every time I drive down there, I've got a listing down there, so I'm driving down there quite a bit. There are new neighborhoods popping up all the time.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very good way to invest in an emerging market, especially if you stick close to the borders of the USDA approval zone.
Right.
Because that's the metro's expanding that way.
Yeah.
And as we get more into, work from home, hybrid stuff, people are wanting to escape higher prices of the metro areas and move out to those rural areas. So it's going to the infrastructure is going to keep expanding.
Right.
So get as close as you can to that border. It's a great investment strategy to get your first home.
Absolutely.
Get as close to that border as you can, buy there, and then just keep edging your way out.
Yeah.
And then as you make money, you can move into those higher price areas that you want to be in.
Right. And then essentially you're having them pay for it for you.
Exactly.
Because you're just using your equity.
Yep. And that goes back to the point we talked about too. The government is willing to give you money to invest in an asset.
Yeah. Quite literally.
Yep. So, Jaiden, when buying a home, why is it important not to waive your inspection?
I think there's a ton of reasons why it's important not to waive your inspection. I think a big one is obviously the safety and well-being of your property, right? When you do an inspection, an inspector is trained and a professional to come in and point out anything and everything that has potential harm on the property and has potential impact on your property no matter what. I mean, that can be anything ranging from your foundation to your water heater to your flooring being too far apart. It's really anything under the sun. An inspector is going to come in, they're going to check it out, take a look. And this is going to impact a lot of different factors. So for people that are thinking about waiving an inspection, definitely stay away from that because it costs you a couple $100 for an inspection to be able to not only protect yourself, you get to understand better of what you're getting yourself into. You can kind of estimate the costs of what things are going to be after you've moved into your property. Plus, you also, during your inspection contingency period, have that time to be able to negotiate, right? So if the foundation is going to be $20,000 and you're at a $300,000 house, it's probably not all that worth it to go spend $20,000 on foundation, right? So you can kind of negotiate that with the seller, whether it's purchase price or whether it's kind of you guys both go in on it, whatever that may be. I mean, there's a ton of different options to be able to use inspection to a buyer's leverage, right? And I think even for sellers too, this could be a big thing, like allow the inspections to happen and don't have pushback for that, because not only does that give them reassurance most of the time, like, yeah, if you know your property is going to come up with an inspection that's like nobody's going to want to buy it.
Well, then you probably lied on your disclosures.
Yeah, I was going to say.
If there's something you're aware of and you're trying to hide it, you should already know. You should have already disclosed that.
Right. Yeah. So either way, it should definitely be a reassurance thing, because then that also gives a buyer a sense like, I'm an honest seller. I know what my house is worth. I know what's wrong with the house, and you've already known that for how long now. So there's no hiccups, right? I think those are some really big key points of not waiving an inspection.
Yeah. No, and I think what you're talking about is huge. A big thing is, and everyone knows in real estate, like any contingency is essentially a spot where a buyer can walk away and not lose their earnest money. Right. So it kind of gives you that reassurance that if something is wrong with the property, you can walk away from it, or you can get that negotiated. Right. And that's why that's why listing agents will generally advise their seller that if they have multiple offers, sometimes they'll take the lower one to go with the one that's waived inspection, because there could be known issues about this. There could be known issues on the house, and the buyer's agent's like, it's no big deal. Like we don't mind. They'll do the inspection just to open up another can of worms so they can negotiate it. Yeah, right. They're just telling the buyers like, hey, let's get our foot in the door. And then we'll negotiate those items that we didn't like, that we clearly saw, but now we're going to say they came up on the inspection. Now we want to negotiate them. Right. So do that inspection so you can work through those items. And like you said, too, it's good for knowing future costs and what you're going to be, because you can negotiate that price down or ask for those items to be fixed. So inspections are always important.
It kind of makes it easier, too, with insurance. I didn't even think about that right away. But I mean, your insurance could press that some things have to be fixed. Yep. So if they come up on the inspection, you can kind of nip that in the butt right away and don't have to worry about it down the line before closing. And it just makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, agreed. I think we're good, right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. So this has been another episode of the Real Estate Sitdown. Please continue to comment on the post so we can break those down. Please like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. Until next time, I fucking hate ending this show because I cannot do it. All right. Okay.
Almost good.
All right. Well, this has been another episode of the Real Estate Sit Down. Thanks for joining us. As always, continue to comment on our posts so we can break those down. Please like and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Blair Berg, and this is Jaiden Millette with the Real Estate Sit Down. We'll see you next time.